Okay, you're back in my office. Here we are. We've got Jordan. Used to be a chocolate lab. You can see how much white he has in him. And if you look over there real close, nestled in, behind Becca, you see, or beside Becca, you see a very little dog. His name is Peanut. He's our guard dog. Then there's Becca with her Lightning. She is currently coloring. She's coloring a mandala book that's full of cuss words and neat little designs around the cuss words. So that's what she's working on. You can see Sadie right here. She's right there. Other than that, it's what you would expect. Okay, so in the last video, you saw a lamp. It's a very cool lamp. And then you saw a mask on the wall. It was the mask that they were selling when we went and saw Phantom of the Opera a couple years ago. It's kind of funny, and it's kind of like she's funny. So like, I'm not really the guy that like buys tickets, makes plans, stuff like that. Becca is really into the Phantom of the Opera, and I found out they were coming to Springfield. So I immediately came home. I found out when I was grocery shopping. I immediately came home, went downstairs, and I tried to buy tickets. And so I went to this like ticket buying service and found us some seats. They weren't good seats. I had a lot of trouble buying stuff. So I got a hold of her. She's upstairs. I got a hold of her and I said, listen, this is in a text. I said, listen, I said, Phantom of the Opera is coming to town in June and I wanted to buy you the tickets for Christmas, but I can't manage to figure out how to do it. So do you want me to use this card or do you want me to use this card or, you know, just what do you want me to do? So I push the button and sent the text and she came back with, holy shit. Hold on, I'll be right down. So she comes down and like throws me onto my chair. She like grabbed the back and she dumped me onto my chair and she sat down. She starts looking at it. She's like, you know, gets me out of everything and goes to the actual whatever. And what was going to end up being 250 ended up being like 110 because she does that thing. And we got much better seats and all that kind of stuff. And that was her Christmas present. It was kind of lame because she only had a couple of prisons to open that year. But she didn't really care. And when we went, it was amazing. So I bought that as a souvenir. Then you go down and you see a poster that has a World of Warcraft character on it. The character's name is Loho. I used that character in a book that I wrote called in the series The Madness Wars, and he became one of the men that fought with Aaron and Peter throughout the war. He ends up with Aaron and Peter, and then he finds out eventually, and this is books and books and books from where we are right now, but eventually he finds out that Peter's daughter is out in the world by herself. By this time, he is an old grizzly old warrior, and he decides he's going to go find her. So he leaves the continent that Peter lives on, and he goes in search of Peter's daughter with zero information on where she might be. And he just goes and finds her. So she will have this grizzled old warrior with her. Anyway, when I was playing World of Warcraft, I had some people that were supposed to teach me how to tank. if you don't play video games or computer games, tanking is where you have one guy up front who takes all the hits. Somebody's in the back healing them, and everybody else is beating on people. And that's how you kill the enemy. Well, I wanted to be a tank from the very beginning, but I didn't know how, and nobody would teach me. So I went on and tried to put it together myself. And I went through a lot of different warriors, trying to find one that I thought would work out for me. Because every time I would build ability tree, and it would, it would never be right. So I found Loho here, and he made it through. Now, what ended up happening was I had to develop my own style of tanking because no one would teach me. I had to develop my own style of tanking with my own ability tree, and it turned out to be very effective. But I would use different things at different times, and like I did it all wrong, but I made it work. So I became pretty well known on the server, and people would ask me to help run them through things, and I would tank for them. I recently found out that people were still looking for my secrets. I ended up taking one apprentice, if you want to call it that, one guy that I taught how to do it my way. And the two of us ran together. So nobody could do it like we did it. And eventually people were being hunted down on other servers, asking who knew Loho and who knew how we used to do it years and years later. Because I did tanking completely differently than anybody had ever seen it before. Well, I don't play World of Warcraft anymore. It was taking up all my time, and I wanted to start writing. Gave up World of Warcraft in 2010. And my group asked me to come back a number of times, and I never came back. That is my only souvenir that I ever played. And in my old office, it was hidden in my closet. But this office, I wanted it out where I could look at it and see it. And then you saw Harlequin. And it's my favorite picture of her. There's a deep kind of sadness to her, and the way she looks that you never see. There's always an exaggeration of her expressions. Whenever she's sad, it's the exaggerated, her mouth is, a big exaggerated frown or whatever. You can see she's actually got her mouth curved up almost in a smile, but there's, in this picture, there's a capture of a deep sadness. And that's the best way that I've seen to, that's my favorite capture of her look. So anyway, okay, so I gotta show you something from my office. And I think I'm gonna go with my secondary completely completely useless, and I don't know why I have it, trash can. So I bought this at a a very odd store. It's a junk store. But also sells very, 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 very nice things. It's called Class and Trash, and it's in a tourist section of North Carolina. So here's the whole trash can. It's filthy. It was actually outside and I never washed it. It's got a lid. I know you loved how pleasant that was. It's got a lid. In my old office, I put empty beer bottles in this. It's got the classic. It's just it's got a classic look to it, and I saw it and I thought it was unique enough. I wanted to have it in my office. I still have not figured out a use for it, but I will one day have a use for it. It's still got the price sticker on it. It was $28. It's still got the price sticker on it, and you can see it's still got the bird poop on it. Yeah, so this is what we're going to look at today. I'm going to put it in the same spot. Sure. Get up, go find a different spot. I'm going to put it in the same spot so you can look at it while we do the show. I have another trash can that serves as my actual trash can, but that one, it just adds something to the office, and this is weird. You're gonna think this is weird, but artist thinks it adds a dash of hope to the office that he's not been able to find anywhere else. And you might think that's weird, but think about it for a little while and it'll make sense to you. We've been through so much pain and we've been through so much abuse, and we're still trying to figure out how to deal with it. And we still have all these issues, and we're trying to figure out what we need to get rid of and what we need to keep. And that trash can, he says, is where eventually we'll put the pain that we still walk around in. So that's what artist thinks. Shadow is still waiting for somebody to come and attack him so that he can grab the lid and be Captain America. Anyway, that's what I wanted to show you from my office today. Okay, so two things. One is today we're going to read a piece called Sunshine. No, The Sun Worshipper. The Sun Worshipper is what we're reading. And it is about my old caseworker. We met her in I think it was second episode this season, in an episode called Urgent. We met her, and it's time to show you what else she was doing for us. So we're gonna do that. That's number one. We'll get to that. Number two, I'm gonna take a break and go wash my hands because that trash can has bird poop on it and various other pieces of whatever I don't want on my hands, because you know how much I touch my mouth. So anyway, I'm gonna go take care of that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I found the Sun Worshipper. Yeah, I'm just gonna get inside. So it's called the Sun Worshipper. It's from the section of the book that we've been going through. And it takes place in 2002. We have to take a minute and look at the things that Sunshine is doing in the background here, because damn. After Urgent left, Sunshine jumped into action. Within a week, she had me into a family practice doctor for a checkup. I had been gaining weight for a while. Since my suicide attempt, be patient, we'll get there, I had been putting on pounds, and it was getting to be a problem. We found out that in the visit subsequent my suicide attempt, my thyroid had been stopped. It was effectively dead, and I would have to take pills for it for the rest of my life. The pills were a small cost, and Urgent had gotten me on emergency Medicaid, so that soaked the cost. Next was a psychiatrist. Sunshine stopped me at the door. He's not an asshole. He's just busy, she said. Okay, I replied. Not every one of my clients complains about this guy. He's the best we work with, but he is, best to use the word gruff. He's very busy and he doesn't like people wasting his time. Don't try to let conversation wander. No extras. Answer his questions. Leave it at that. And you will find Dr. J to be your best friend. And I did. I didn't need him to be my friend or my counselor. I had plenty of those. I needed a guy to do this job. And I didn't need him to hold my hand to do it. We met for years until he quit to go into private practice. He said that he was not allowing any of his patients to come with him from that place. And he was to his new office, with the exception of me. He liked working with me, felt as if I respected his time and valued his services. Dr. J would be my guy until I moved back to Milwaukee. He did a lot of great things for me and I have few regrets. The first day I gave him my history with bipolar and he asked me to repeat it. When I was done, he told me his diagnosis. Said that I have a very extreme level of bipolar and that I had, by my description, had a psychotic break the day I was fired from pizza the second time. Again, we will get there. Stop interrupting me. He said that if I had another one, I would likely not come out of it. He told me to never go off my meds, and I never did. More on that, I promise. Let's stay with Sunshine. She's about to get pissed. So she talked to my therapist often. I'd signed a waiver allowing her to know a bit of what he had to say, and he kept her appraised of my progress. I talked to her about it too. It was just that sometimes she needed to hear it from the source. See, mental health has such a stigma to it that often those suffering from it will lie about the effects or how bad they are. They often feel like their therapist is getting too personal and they pull back. They don't want to change certain things about themselves and they will often hold their secrets. Sunshine had no way of knowing if I was doing that or not, so she checked in on me every now and then. She found that I was always telling her the truth. I was just so happy to have her and to even listen to me and telling me that it was going to be all right, that I wasn't in too deep, not too deep. I was in deep, but not too deep, and vowing to be with me through it all. I was so happy to be getting the help that I was open about all of it. So then the rejection letter showed up and I showed it to Sunshine and she kind of lost it. She doesn't look. I've only seen it once. It's a cold, dead-eye stare that comes with anger and determination. When she found out that I had been rejected for disability, she got that look. She knew what I was dealing with and she knew that if anyone needed to be on disability, it was me. I made an argument that if they said I didn't qualify, then I didn't want to push the issue, and she snapped back, no, they don't deny you, not you. And they don't, and they do this anyway. They deny 60% of applicants straight away. The only real work gets done in the appeals. No, we're not done here, not at all. Urgent had filled out all the paperwork early, so Sunshine took the application and found out that before they denied me, they did not request my documents. They took what was sitting in front of them and they went with that. The only thing they even considered was my thyroid. They said this was an easy fix with a pill and noped me out. Sunshine did not want to chance it, so we went to Columbia to get my records. See, I'd been admitted into a psych ward at the Columbia Hospital before. I swear, God, guys, it'll all play out. Just be patient. God. We drove the 2 hours up there and we sat in the waiting room outside of records until they signed my medical documents over and we drove home. She hit up Dr. J. He had a policy of never signing on the request for disability. He would not even consider touching the paper. Sunshine had a conversation with him about it, without me present, and without even giving it a second thought, he signed the papers. He wrote a detailed description of what I was capable of with my disorder and what could be expected of me. He put it all down on paper. When I heard it read back to me, it was daunting. Next stop was a lawyer. I told her this was not necessary a few times. My working class background had taught me that disability was for lazy people or injured people, not for the sad and depressed. Mental health got no respect from my family, and they were quick to deny it all and tell me to buck up. I had their voices in my head when she walked me into the lawyer's office and sat me down. She'd even let me speak for myself. She answered all the questions that were asked of me, except the most basic, and she lined it all up for me. One night she came to my house and saw a stack of papers between the wall and the end table. She asked about it and I had no answer for her. She pulled them out and laid them on the table and she gasped, "These are bills." She said, "What are they doing back here?" I stared, shocked and stunned. I have no idea. I've never seen that stack of papers a day in my life. "Shadow?" Sunshine said, and she was not wrong. He admitted to just tossing the mail back there and never opening it. She opened everything. She stacked them all according to date. She added everything up and came up with a final total. She told me that they were a stone's throw away from shutting off my phone. My bills were months late, and she grabbed my checkbook, wrote a few checks, and I signed them. I think she paid for the stamp and to get it mailed. One day in therapy, I recovered a memory. It was a moment of such horrifying abuse that I was broken and shamed by it. All of the abuse I had suffered in my life, this was beyond anything I could ever imagine. And I had no one I felt capable, uncomfortable telling about it. Now in this collection, I've detailed very little of the actual abuse I suffered. I did not want to turn this into that kind of book. I don't want it to be read as a disgusting, mind-shattering experience for the reader. I want this to read as a story of overcoming odds and self-transformation. I want a story filled with heroes, with little light shined on the villains. So I'll not be telling this little bit of information. It is so dark and so twisted that hearing of the incident can only bring harm to you as a reader. You'll not be able to give this back if I tell it to you. So like all the really bad stuff, I will hold on to this. Couldn't handle it alone though, no way. It's too immense, too god-awful to ever allow myself to share with anyone. The pure burden of the knowledge of this abuse made it almost a crime to tell anyone. Whoever I told would have a new kind of darkness in their life. When we found it in therapy, Stephen said, "You can't sit on this. You'd have to talk about this with someone." He shook his head. "This is not a thing you deal with alone." "I can't tell Becca or Siren. I can't tell anyone in my life. This is too much. It's too horrific." "Then tell Sunshine," Stephen said. "Tell her. Call her and tell her all of it. She can handle it. Even if no one else can, she can." "I don't want anyone to know about this," I sobbed. "Yes, you do," he said. "Trust me, you want to share this. Go to Sunshine. She can help you." That night I called her. "Sunshine, listen, I found something in therapy today. It's so horrible." I broke into sobs. "I can't tell anyone else. I don't want Becca to know. I can't face her. I can't look in the eyes and tell her this. Stephen said I should ask you to hear it, to talk to me about it. But it'll stain you. It'll stain your ears. You'll never be the same again." I sent all this to a message service that her healthcare offices use. "I'll be in my house. I won't be asleep." I let Becca and Siren come by that day, but I did not talk to them. I was haunted. Could not speak without crying. Could not look at them without feeling sick to my stomach. Siren pushed the issue. "How can I help you if you don't tell me everything?" she said. This is important. You need someone to talk to. Without looking at her, I told her I called Sunshine. Sunshine doesn't love you like I love you. You need to tell me right now. You need to let this off your chest. Spit it out. What happened? I threw her out. When I told Becca about the darkness of the session, and I told her I could not tell her anything about it, she nodded. What do you want from me? I don't know. I said, all I know is I can't look at you. She turned off all the lights and we watched the movie. Then we watched another one. We didn't talk. She got me drinks every now and then. Then Lenore watched movies and slowly wept. Sunshine called early that morning telling us that she would be there at 10. She said she canceled every other appointment she had. I had her for as long as I needed her. Then she said, you're not a stain in my life. You are hope for all of us. I want you to see that one day. One day your story is going to matter to the world. Today it matters to me. I'll be there at 10. Becca stayed until 9:30 while Siren called every 2 hours to yell on my answering machine and tell me I needed her and to let her come help me. When Becca left, she did not touch me. She did not tell me she loved me. She knew I was incapable of hearing or feeling any of that. She simply said, when you want to see me again, let me know. I'll come as soon as you need me. She closed the door, and I locked it. Sunshine came to the door and I let her in. She had Taco Bell. She knew my order. We had gone before. Now she had lunch for me and she said, after all this is over, you will eat. I know you haven't eaten it all yet. I can't look at you and tell you this, I said. Then we do it in the dark, she said. To this day, if my sons have anything they need to tell me about that they have a problem saying to my face, we go into the office and close the door and turn off the lights. It's the best way to deal with embarrassing and difficult subjects. I learned it from Sunshine. She pulled the drapes and we sat on the bed, both of us with our backs to the wall, and me talking. And I told her my darkest secret, the most horrifying thing I'd ever seen or heard tell of. And I had lived it. She took it like a boxer taking a punch to the jaw. When I was done talking, I was run out. I was beyond myself. I was not even in bed anymore. My mind had disassociated so badly that I could see us from the couch. The telling had been so traumatic that I had an out-of-body experience just going through the trauma of telling it. For a long time, she said nothing. She let it all sit. Let me hear the ring and the echo of the story in the air around me. And she sighed. She said these words. When I hear that, I do not hear a story about a child being abused. I hear a story about a child surviving torture and horror. You said that if you told me this story that it would stain me. It does not stain me. It gives me hope. One day you're going to do great things. We will get you there. It'll just take a bit more work than we want it to. She dropped the bag of Taco Bell in my lap. Now eat. You need food. And I know you haven't eaten since yesterday. I cried. I sobbed. I curled up and she did not touch me. She did not hold me or hug me. She let me get it all out. I thought about it for a long time. For years, I thought about the fact that she did not come for me. I know part of it was professionalism. She had boundaries she needed to keep firm. She was also married and did not want to send the wrong message. That might be the reason she did it, but that is not what I took from it. What I took from her letting me cry alone was that she knew I would be fine. She needed to let me self-soothe, needed to let me find a way back to myself without the help of other people. I ate. And when I was done, she took me outside. She swore it was a beautiful day. She swore it. However, I cannot agree because the sun was up and out where everyone could see it. And there's a warm and nice, it was warm with a nice breeze. I prefer darkness, cold, and cutting wind. She took me to the park outside of my apartment and she had me sit on the sidewalk and let the sun touch me. She said she was a sun worshiper. She needed the sun to keep her alive. She spent as much time in the sunlight as possible. I was sure that was gross, but I guess to some people there's an appeal to the sun, so I didn't tell her. You'll see her a few more times in this book, I'm sure, but I wanted to line it all up for you, let you see this amazing person and what she did for me. I love you. I love you, Sunshine. I will always love you as a big sister. Wherever you go, you will have that love following you. I wish you nothing but happiness, and I will say that I am better now, making the difference that you talked about that day. Sunshine found me at a book signing last year. She just walked right up to me like it was nothing at all. I wept and I thanked her, and she giggled and smiled. She told me how proud she was of me. We were at a library that day, and she leaned in so as not to let anyone else hear what she said. And she pointed at me and she said, yours is the most inspirational story in this whole fucking building. Thinking about those words is why I started Reality of the Unreal Mind. And that way too, if not for her, you would not be reading this story. Okay, so that was Sunshine. Chapter is called The Sun Worshipper. It's really intense. But it is not as intense as what I'm about to read you. What I'm about to read you, I'm not even 100% sure I can get through all the way without a complete breakdown, complete meltdown. But I'm going to try, because this is part of Sunshine's legacy. And I think it belongs in this video. So let me get myself together, let me try to find it, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I told you in the last piece I read to you, I told you about the lawyer she got for me for the appeal for my disability. And now I'm going to read to you that appeal. I've never been able to get through this without completely melting down. I wrote it and it nearly broke me, and every time that Becca has read it back to me, it's nearly broken me. And when I read it, I've read these books so many times, getting ready to release them, and every time this chapter gets to me. It is a perfect explanation of what I am fighting on an everyday basis. It's a display of how my mind works, and yeah. It's called The Appeal. It took place in 2003. This is the appeal for my Social Security. It's the middle of the afternoon in 2020, and I have been awake for 22 hours, but I have to finish. I can't leave it like this. I'm writing about events in my past so distant yet so close, and I'm living and dying in the telling. You and I, have to get through this, and that means I'm up with you until I tell the rest of Patchwork. As I hand off this monumental piece of myself to you, I will not be able to eat or sleep. I won't leave this desk, and hopefully by the end of the night, this part of my life will be set down. I started Reality of an Unreal Mind as a blog to tell my readers a little bit about who I am as a person and things that I've been through. As I traveled through the telling of this tale, I've been finding things out and setting things next to each other in ways I never have before. I'm seeing motives behind glances and getting full picture of what was happening. I'm hearing the story as if for the first time with you as you read it, because as I tell the parts that I remember, the other authors are stepping forward to tell their parts and let me see what they were thinking, or in some place, let me know what did happen. Today, before I get to bed, again, the two biggest events of my life will unfold. Before we rest, the two greatest moments that I've ever lived will play out. One step on a cloud, one step into hell. The climax of two separate parts of my life are explored in the next 30 minutes of yours and mine life. As I write this to you now, we both come forward to discover the type of man I am and the kind of person I've become. We will see the unifying moment, the one spark that brought us of the altars flaming as one in one place at one time for one great fight for love. We'll see the rage of the battle and the clear defining moment of character and resolve. We'll see the beginning of Guardian's War and the loss of a mind. I sit here right now waiting for the next clicks of the keyboard to tell you the most intimate details and the most important moments of my life. And I have to say, I'm scared. I'm terrified and type with eyes rimmed with tears, for I know the broad strokes, but I don't know the details. Thank you. And this part I want to say to everybody who has bought Teardrop Road. Some of you may know that I released it on Thursday, last Thursday. I want to say this part to some of you who have bought it, and for those of you who do buy it, this part's for you. Thank you. Thank you for coming into my darkness and not making me do this alone. Thank you for being here when I need you the most. For I do not know a story until it is told. I've never understood the things that have happened in my life until this day. Thank you for coming to me through this as I bleed from old wounds and find new ways to heal. There is flame and blood and love and hope before us. But first, we have to make one quick stop. We have one more smaller step, one more breath before the plunge. Let's talk about the ball that Sunshine got rolling and the things she taught me as she left. You're going to have to know this part to understand the true scope of my defeat and the true power of my victory. Sunshine sat me in the lawyer's office and she slapped the paper down in front of him and she answered all the questions that the lawyer asked. Most were pretty basic, but there was one doozy. While interviewing us about potential evidence available to him, he said, "And then is there a person that you think reliable that could testify on behalf of you as the struggles and challenges that you have to live with on a daily basis?" He shuffled some papers and looked up for a brief moment before reaching to write something down. A character witness of sorts. "We have one," Sunshine said. "And what is her name?" "Rebecca Lynch," she said, without pause or caution. She looked at me and lifted an eyebrow, and I nodded emphatically back. "She knows him better than anyone else, and you can rely on her for accuracy and no drama. She is exactly what you're looking for." She turned to look me in the eye and smiled. It was the first time I'd seen her do that all day. "She is exactly what you're looking for." Then her fingertips wrapped lightly and lovingly on her belly. He was about to have her first son. She's not quite here yet, but he was not waiting. She stood by me every day until she gave birth to that beautiful son of hers. Then Sunshine had to walk away. She needed to go and be amazing with her new ray of light. The sun worshiper was bringing light into the world, and she would not be able to help me anymore. I hugged her goodbye when she left. I told her I loved her, and she said it back. I thanked her, but that song was not long enough, and she flew off. What is left of this chapter belongs in her legend. Here we are. She's been gone for months, and she's about to teach me one last lesson about myself before she's gone forever. Let's lean in and hear what she has to say. My new caseworker was awesome. She was fun and smart, and in the end, we didn't work out very well. But while she was with me, she was a warrior. We will call her Indigo. Indigo drove me to the appeal that day, and I met with a lawyer in the hallway. He had been there all day. He lived in this building. It was an office building where these court cases were heard, and he was here almost every day. Indigo told me that he had between 6 and 8 of these hearings that day, and he would be here long after 10. She said he was good, and we needed to be ready when he was. He walked up to me. He saw Becca standing right beside me, and he nodded. Okay, I will go in with Jesse and Indigo. We will present our case. There will be a lot of questions. Talk slow and measured. Do not rush. If you say any numbers, spell them out loud. Rebecca, please wait in the waiting room, and if I decide you can help us, I will let you know. We may not need you at all, but it is always wise to have someone like you around, I hear. He chuckled. I tried to chuckle too, but it came out a wheeze and a cough. Do not speak until someone asks you a question. Answer the question and fall silent again. Everyone go to the bathroom and be ready in 10 minutes. He looked up at me and smiled. Thank you, I said. I tried to sound encouraging, tried to sound grateful, but all that came out was a sob. He looked me in the eye for a moment before nodding. Indigo squeezed my shoulder. Becca hugged me. The room was pretty big, but only the front of it was being used. I remember wood paneling. I remember thinking that they don't update government buildings as often as they should, because this decorating was from a year or two before I was born. The table was big, and I sat on one side of it. Across from me sat the judge. He always seemed to be looking everywhere else. He never seemed focused on me. I would find this to be boldly untrue, but at the time it seemed fact. The reality was, this man was studying everything about me. He would see things I would forget to hide. On one side of me sat my lawyer. On the other side, a portly lady, dressed well with a large book in front of her. The judge started a recorder and began speaking into a mic. And this was when I realized I had a mic in front of me. It was old and odd, an instrument so old as to be the egg for the dinosaur instead of the dinosaur itself. He introduced the case, said the name of everyone in the room, and he thanked the woman beside me. Thanked her for her time and her efforts. He made note that she was a wonderfully competent social worker, and they were all lucky to have her on this case. I still don't know her function, but now I was beginning to see that she had no papers before her except this big book. It had tabs sticking out of it in many places, and it had been thumbed over and over again. I had expected that there would be a lawyer arguing against me, an enemy for my lawyer to lock wits with. But I was finding out that if we had an enemy, it was this woman. She did not seem fierce. My lawyer began to talk. Don't ask me to go over the minutes. To do so would break me. I'll give you the highlights, and I'll let them be told to you by Smear Lord of Ire. This man looks whole, the lawyer said. He looks strong, he looks bright, he looks capable, but this man is disabled. We cannot expect him to live a normal life. Normal will never be attainable for this man. He cannot take care of himself. He cannot support himself. He cannot help himself. He is in every way that you would classify him unable. He is a broken man that cannot be expected to take care of himself, and I plan to show you that he's worth fighting for, taking care of, and giving life to. I have a letter from his psychiatrist that says that he cannot perform the tasks necessary to hold down any job he might seek. He cannot regulate his sleep. He cannot regulate his emotions. He cannot be expected to talk to people in public, to conduct himself in any reasonable way in public for any long period of time. He cannot be in a certain place at a certain time. He cannot be trusted to spend his money wisely. He cannot be asked to be in charge of anything professional. Jesse Teller is disabled and should not be expected to face any sort of schedule or any sort of plan that lasts any longer than a few weeks to 2 months. This man needs constant change and strict regimen. He needs to be in an environment where he can be expected to perform, but at the same time, not be led to sit still. Jesse Teller is, in my professional opinion, severely mentally disabled. And if anyone qualifies for disability is this man. I have in 20 years as a doctor written 3 of these recommendations. This is the 3rd. At this point, I could not breathe. I could not hold my head up. I had no pride left. I had no hope left. I had been ripped off any pedestal I'd ever been put on. This was shown in lurid color by my vast lamentations. I was raw. I was gasping. And the judge was watching. I fought off the tears and just struggled to get my breath back before the next blow came. The lawyer turned to the woman and began listing off a list of jobs that I had done in the past, what I had knowledge of, and he told her the classes I had taken in college, and she turned in her big book of jobs and started flipping. She looked again at the doctor's note. She asked a question. It was so banal and technically aligned and bogged down in so much jargon that I was lost halfway through the asking of it. I blinked. I shook my head and tried to focus, and the judge was watching. She asked a few more questions. They were answered by my lawyer. She read a few more pages in her book, made a few statements, read the doctor's letter again before turning to the judge and saying something along these lines. As a labor expert in this case, I can say with authority that this man is unemployable. With the limitations that have been laid before me in the testimony of his doctor, I can say that workforce cannot hire this man. I looked away. I gasped for breath. I looked at my lawyer, who looked up at me and locked eyes with me for a moment. I focused on him. I let myself sit in his eyes. I drew in a shaky breath and I looked up. And the judge was watching. Indigo came in and told the court what she did for me, making sure I took my meds, checking in with my therapist to make sure I was still working on therapy. She made sure I had toiletries. She made sure I had food. She made sure my house was clean. She made sure I was paying my bills. She made sure I was keeping myself clean. She made sure that I was wearing clean clothing. I found out that day that everything that a mother does for a child, Indigo and Sunshine, had been doing for me. I sat on the side of the room now as Indigo and Becca sat down, and now the judge was talking to Becca. Becca told him that she never knew from one moment to the next what sort of mood I was going to be in or what sort of things would be running through my mind. She said that sometimes for no reason, I would just burst out crying and not be able to tell her why, that I would get lost on my way to the bathroom. She said that sometimes I'd be in public and have no idea how I'd gotten there. While she was talking, the judge held up a hand to pause her for a moment. The room stopped, and I watched my life play out before me. Then the judge spoke. I would like the minutes to record that while listening to this testimony, Jesse Teller sits on the side of the room, rocking himself back and forth in an effort to self-soothe. I did not cry. I did not scream. I did not run. I did not beg. I sat there shifting from one altar to the next while we tried to decide who was going to stand in for us. None of us were equipped for this. We were raised working class. Your worth was decided by how hard and how consistent of a worker you were. I sat there shifting from one person to the next, searching for anyone who could withstand the knowledge of all that was being ripped from us. In the end, it was Smear, Lord of Ire, that came to our aid. He set the room on fire with blue and purple flame. He put orange wings on Becca and gave my lawyer armor and a sword. At my feet, a hopping Catherine. Above my head, the roof blew off. The daytime sky was black, encrusted with stars made of diamonds, and above me hovered a massive man, covered in black fur with tiger-striped butterfly wings. A few months later, we were dubbed mentally disabled. We were a ward of the state. Our life was to be overseen by our caseworker from that day forward. We were retired from any lifestyle we prepared for. We were done. Everyone in my life celebrated. Something inside me curled up and dried out. I don't have to be in public unless I'm at a book signing, and it's for a limited amount of time, and I have Becca sitting right next to me. I don't have to be in any one place at any one time. I'm filming this on a Wednesday. It'll be coming out Friday. I wrote my newsletter for June came out on the 13th, and I wrote it the 2nd of June. My deadlines are so far ahead that I don't feel any stress in getting them done because I simply can't get things done. I can't be expected to work every day. I can't be expected to make plans to create every day. I have to write when I can. And I have to be able to take a day, a week, month off whenever I want. Sometimes I can't be around the kids when I eat. And I have to eat in our bedroom. Sometimes I can't find the bathroom. Sometimes Becca has to help and dress me. There's too much going on in my brain. But there's one thing I can do. And that is I can sit down and I can write. I can do it on my time. And before we started publishing anything, I wrote so many books that deadlines aren't a problem. I can work for long periods of time and then never come back to it. I can work for a long period of time and then do it again the next day. None of it's predictable. Living with me is not predictable at all. The kids are used to it. Becca patches in a lot of holes. And always the hallucinations that artist gives me, especially when he's upset or when I'm upset. I can tell you that right now, there is no wall behind me. I mean, in front of me. I'm looking at two screens, an Amazon Echo, a desk, lamp, and everything else is gone. And the darkness beyond my house, there is no front yard, no road, no neighbors' houses. It's a long expanse of broken rock. And in the distance hovers smear. The hallucinations never quit. They never stop. So, yeah, those are the two things that I wanted to read to you today. They're both tied to Sunshine and what she did for me. And they both show her love for the people that she worked for, people that she helped, her clients, for the job she was doing, and for me. I remember when I saw her in the library book signing, I hugged her, broke down. I just told her she saved my life. That she saved my life so many times. And she kind of giggled. And she said that was kind of the job. She said, but you were special. So, she's a agent for traditional publishing now. She works with people in the Midwest trying to get them recognized by the big publishers. She's still helping people. She's still making their dreams come true. I don't think she knows how not to. So when I get on Facebook today, I'll see posts from the Sun Worshipper, and she'll support me. She'll give me likes, make little comments. She's still there. She's still out there, taking an interest in my life and helping me when she can. Okay. That's all for that. I need to take a break. And that's going to be our show. I have one chocolate covered espresso bean left that I waited until I finished my show to eat. So I'm gonna do that. I want to tell you that Teardrop Road is out there. I dropped it without warning, letting no one know it was coming. And surprisingly, it's doing very well. I'm only surprised because nobody had any warning. Teardrop is out there. Find me on Facebook to find out more about it. It's available on Amazon. But I'm doing this thing to promote the book. I mentioned before I'm on a 48-hour schedule, so I won't sleep at all tonight. But what will happen is I will stay up, and through the process of the night, I'll write a post. I'll write a Facebook post. And that Facebook post will describe what my night is like, unfiltered, without explaining anything. It'll show you what I went through when, what was going through my mind, how, and you can see the different shifts. Come in. You can see the different shifts in my you can see the different shifts that I've actually go through. Okay, I'm almost done here. Can you keep it together, Peanut? You don't have to leave. Just you can see through the post. You can see the different shifts of my altars as they deal with different things going on in their night. But so I've done 3 of those. If you find me on Facebook, scroll back and read, and you'll get an unfiltered, untouched look at the things that happen in my mind on the nights when I stay awake. Do all the things, and thanks for coming by. My baseline will show you to the door.